I'm Matt Fowler, and it's my job to welcome you to Wabash Valley College. Can you in the back hear me? Yeah. Yes. Hey, I've got a picture that I'm going to put up here. There. How many football fans do we have in the audience? Anybody recognize Don Shula? Hall of Fame coach, Miami Dolphins. University of California at Berkeley did an experiment, and one of the things that they were talking about was, should a coach on fourth down go for it? And they studied all high school football, all college football, all professional football for a decade. And what they came up with was, if it is fourth down and 3 or less, your chances of getting a first down are 56%. They're greater than not getting a first down. But what do coaches do on fourth down and 3? They punt. Virtually every time. They asked Don Shula, who had never seen the study, they said, what will be the next greatest thing in football? And he said, it won't be a thing, it'll be a person. And it'll be the person who goes for it on fourth down. Every time. Because the chances are you'll make it. Why doesn't the coach go for it on fourth down? Too risky. And the risk is, everyone on social media will say, you're crazy. You didn't get it that one time. You're a bad coach. Don Shula, Hall of Famer, says, the person who does that will be the next greatest thing in football. I want to welcome you to Wabash Valley College today. One of the things I want you to recognize is you're at a time in your life, much like we're talking about in football, when you have the opportunity to go for it. Or punt. You're going to make that decision. We invited you here today to see something that you won't see in high school. To see a presentation that you won't see anywhere else. My hope is that it encourages you. My hope is that many of you are interested in the health career field. My hope is that this causes you to go for it. That you become the next greatest thing in the health career field. My opportunity to recognize one specific gentleman in particular, and that's Jay Purvis, who is the CEO of Wabash General Hospital, and is the guy who, for all intents and purposes, allows this to happen. So, thank you, Jay.
I really didn't know that Dr. Fowler was going to set this up for me in a way that makes me give you a next 30-minute speech. How's that for you? Work for you? Maybe not. How many of you at this point are planning to pursue something in medicine or science? Okay. All right, put it down. We're well staffed, and it's 25 years. I think you'll find it very frustrating and very difficult to do, but for those of you that pursue it, I think the reward is the satisfaction you get as an individual for what you're able to do in making a difference. We hope that our hospital, along with the university, Dr. Fowler, and our staff, which are going to meet in a few minutes, help you see how to make a difference in seeing some remarkable technology that you otherwise would not be able to see. This is a unique opportunity. I hope you're going to enjoy it. On behalf of the hospital, we want to thank the university and our staff for being here to provide you an opportunity to see something that's happening now and is getting better all the time. It should be something for you to reflect on as you make career decisions going down the road. So thank you all for being here, and I'll turn it back over to Matt. I'll turn it over to Dr. Gill.
I'm going to use the microphone here. Like I said, I'm Dr. Gill. I have the privilege of teaching anatomy and physiology here at Wabash Valley College. I've been here for 5 years. I also teach microbiology, and I have the benefit and fortunate benefit here at a community college to teach human cadaver anatomy. We're very fortunate to have that option available for our students to learn hands-on with cadavers. So I just have a list of thank yous that I want to do here, and then I'm going to turn the event over to Dr. Fowler, or everybody wants to turn over to Dr. Fowler, to Dr. Fulop and their staff. So I'm okay with a round of applause. So let's go ahead real quick again and thank Jay Purvis, the CEO at Wabash General Hospital, and their staff. Terry Bruce is the CEO of IECC District. He wasn't able to be here today, but him, Dr. Fowler, the administrative staff that lead WVC and our IECC District, let's give them a round of applause. Did a lot of work organizing this. I see one standing in the background. She doesn't know I'm doing it. Emily Waterbury, you come on out. And then Danielle Stevens from Wabash General Hospital. If you two would stand and wave. Emily's who you were probably communicating with as far as the school counselors and teachers. So she did a lot of work behind the scenes for us for this. Jerry Baines up the top in his theater department. I don't know if he can hear me or not, but we want to thank the theater department for our help, their help today. So let's give them a round of applause. Some of you may not be aware, but Wabash Valley College has a radio and TV broadcasting program. Many of them are going to be helping today as far as providing you with the imaging. If you're an athlete, you've probably seen them around at their games. So Kyle Peach is the lead instructor for that. So let's give Kyle Peach and Radio TV a round of applause. Adam Resch, I always get his name. I hope I did that right. Adam Resch is the operations crew head, and his department kind of helped prep with chairs and tables, so let's give them a round of applause. I'm not sure if Judy or Kathy Hudson are in here. They are, they can wave at me somewhere, but Judy and Kathy are two of our nursing instructors, and we decided this year to put on a separate session for students that had an interest in nursing career fields. So let's go ahead and give Judy and Kathy Hudson a round of applause. Many of you received tours by students of our Healthcare Professionals Club. So I'm going to hold off on the round of applause for them. They'll get back at me later for that. But we appreciate their help in providing tours. We do have a club that meets here on campus, and many of the professionals you see up here, we're fortunate they take time out of their day to come speak with our students on about a once-a-month basis to make them, one, aware of the path that they took to get to their point in their career, but number two, it provides them kind of a networking opportunity to be able to ask questions. As you're choosing your career field, it's going to be important that you take the time to ask the questions, what you like, what you don't like about your career field, to make sure that the life that you want to have matches up with the career that you're choosing. So we're thankful for that. So before I turn it over to Dr. Fulop, I want to thank Ron Paris and Brent Harris if they'd step out from Stryker Orthopedics. As far as helping out with this, but to do this procedure, this company has donated the equipment and the supplies needed to perform these procedures for us today, and Dr. Fulop will elaborate a little bit more about that when he gets going here. I just got a couple things here to finish up on. One is, when you came in, did everybody receive a student information card? Okay. If you didn't, go ahead and raise your hand, and some of our ushers will run around and get you a card. If you did not, so we got a couple down front here. One is, this just provides for us a record of your visit. At the bottom, there should have been an area of interest. So if you have an interest in healthcare, there's some of them coming around, so you can throw a hand up if you didn't. Number two is, this is how we're doing our drawings this year at the very end. When they're done with the presentation, Dr. Fulop and I will draw some names out, and we've got some gifts both from the hospital and the college to give away. So while they're doing that, I just got a couple last things to cover here. One is, for those of you who don't know me, I was actually a chiropractic physician for 15 years before I left the actual being out in the healthcare field to come teach. And I'm a graduate of Lincoln Trail College, was where I did some of my undergraduate studies. Dr. Miller, Andrew Kleinschmidt, who's the director of our rehabilitative facilities, are also, they are graduates of Wabash Valley College. And I just say that for this purpose. Orthopedics is obviously a very specific field, and yet Dr. Miller was able to get some of his prerequisites done right here at Wabash Valley College. I did a bulk of mine at Lincoln Trail College at probably a fraction of the cost, but probably more importantly is this. I got an email from a former student of mine, who is at U of I now, and she is studying speech therapy, and she told me, she was sending me an email thanking me for the work that I'd done here in anatomy. She was taking a different anatomy class in a room similar to this with 200 students with no lab component for anatomy. And she said the students around her were bombing and she was making an A. And so she was just thanking me for the prep work that she received here at Wabash. And so I know a lot of you, when I was a freshman in high school, my dream was U of I. And I didn't end up going there. And looking back, I'm thankful for the route that I took. The community college setting provides small class sizes. I know almost all of my students by name. Sometimes I call them the wrong name, right, Caleb? Sometimes you get called the wrong name, but we work through it together. So I just want to encourage you to consider that in making your career choice. So the last thing I want to mention here before we get started is about our cadavers. When we first discussed doing this type of procedure in an open setting like this, one of the things we always want to consider is the fact that we're going to have a human being up here that is no longer living, and I guess to some degree, right, is not able to make the choice to be up here for this procedure. But in essence, they did make that choice. People that have chosen to provide their body for study do so, I feel, in all likelihood with the mindset of this type of thing, is they do so with the envision of helping students like yourself to learn about the human body, to where hopefully you'll be able to make an impact in somebody's life who's still living. So I do ask you to be respectful today, as far as at the end you'll be able to come up and ask questions and be around the cadavers. I encourage you to not take pictures up close for social media. For some people that may be bothersome. We'll have some pictures that we'll probably post through social media routes, but I guess in essence, even though they're not able to be here to get their applause, I'm going to do one last round of applause for the cadavers, the people, the human people that made the conscious decision to donate their body for study so we can be here and learn today. So let's go ahead and do that.
I'm from Mount Carmel. I'm born and raised here. This started about 10 years ago in the anatomy lab. We started doing procedures on the cadavers just to kind of show kids that were interested in healthcare, kind of what really happens in the operating room, what happens in the hospital, what happens when you get hurt, you tear your ACL, you break your humerus, those kind of things. And over the years, it's kind of grown and grown, and it's always generated tons of questions. I know when I was in high school, I kind of thought I wanted to go into healthcare, but I really didn't know what happened when you went into a hospital. I wasn't really sick, so we kind of came up with the idea of having this for high school students, just to answer some questions, letting you know what kind of healthcare fields are available, what it takes to get into those healthcare fields, answer some questions for you, get to see a cool procedure, see what happens when you get hurt, a couple other things, why you want to drink milk, right? Orthopedic surgeons like strong bones, and why you don't text and drive. Those are two of the things I'd like to talk about today. But I'm part of a team, okay? I'm one person on a team, and the team is like a chain, right? The chain's only as strong as its weakest link. So every person on that team plays a role. And every role requires a different education. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of introduce our team that we use to take care of people. And each person on the team is going to kind of tell what they do on a daily basis, how much school they went to kind of let you guys know what you might be in for if you're interested in that career. Okay, so we're going to kind of run through everybody. You know, in our practice, I'll start with myself. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. Dr. Miller's an orthopedic surgeon, and Dr. Slater is a family practice sports medicine physician. Okay, so we're all docs, MDs. That means we went to college for 4 years. We went to medical school for 4 years, and then we did a residency somewhere between 3 or 5 years, and you can kind of keep going with that as long as you want. So lots of schooling. And then Dr. Miller, I can't remember anything about. Dr. Miller he started his education here at Wabash, and then went on to USI, so all local, and then eventually finished up in Indiana, at the Indiana residency program. Just to kind of jump around, we'll start with our PAs. Does anybody know what a PA is? Physician assistant, right? Physician assistant is a great career. They're what we call mid-levels. They also, nurse practitioners can do similar things. And you guys want to step up to the mic? This is Kayla Wilcox. Chelsea Hahn's also a PA that works with us.
Hi, my name's Kayla. I'm a physician assistant, as is Chelsea, right there as well. So how many of you guys know what a PA or a physician assistant is or have heard of one? Yeah? That's pretty good. It's better every year. So we'll start with the schooling. After high school, you go to 4 years of undergrad, get a bachelor's degree in any subject. So some people think, oh, I have to do chemistry, I have to do biology. But you really don't. Some people in my class are actually Spanish or English majors. You just have to take all the science prerequisites for the PA school you're applying to. PA school consists of a little over 2 years. So you do 12 months of didactic or in-class work, and then 12 months to 14 months of actual clinical rotations. And those clinical rotations consist of all areas of medicine, so from family medicine to orthopedic surgery to women's health, things like that. And then when you get out, what's kind of nice about being a PA is you can go into any of those fields. So you don't have to go on and do a fellowship, you don't have or a residency, as do the doctors do. So, say you work in a specialty for 2 or 3 years and think, oh, I really kind of would like to do a separate specialty or go back to family medicine. That's always an option. And our role as a PA, specifically an orthopedic surgeon, we'll talk about that, is that we assist the surgeon. We see patients on our own. So, the doctor doesn't have to be in with us every patient we see. We diagnose patients, we treat them, and we follow them up on like a bi-weekly basis or just depending on the diagnosis. We see patients in the hospital. We round on them if they had a total hip done. We see them daily as long as they're in the hospital. And then we also assist in surgery. So that consists of helping them open. We hold retractors, hold things and instruments during surgery, and then help them close as well. So that's kind of the gist of what a PA is. Does anybody have any questions about a PA? If so, Chelsea and I will be up after the presentation, and I also have a handout on PAs I'll put up here if anybody's interested after as well. Thanks.
The other part of our team in the hospital is the nurses. The nurses can work on the floor. They can work in the emergency room. They can also work back in surgery and be specialists. We have Sabrina, who's a nurse. Sabrina, I'll say a few words about just what it takes to go into nursing school. And then Sabrina has a dual role with us. She also works as a tech, a surgical tech. Surgical tech is kind of an instrument specialist back in the OR. We have a couple of our surgical techs hiding down here. And so Sabrina can also talk about being a tech, because she kind of does both things in the operating room, but both have a different path as far as schooling goes.
So I know there's a lot of nursing students in here. I did my nursing here at Wabash. It was 2 years. It consists of a lot of schoolwork, going to clinicals, things like that. You can even pursue further and get a 4-year bachelor's degree, which is what a lot of people push for this new time. But so nursing is you can go in many different fields. You can do cardiac nursing, med surg, work with elderly, pediatrics. There's all sorts of different routes you can take as a nurse. I primarily have worked in PACU, which is the post-anesthesia care unit, so I receive patients after they have surgery. We watch and make sure they wake up okay, they're breathing fine, try to keep their pain level to a minimum, and do whatever we can to get them onto their next phase of recovery. I then also can work in surgery. There are circulating and a scrub nurse. Circulating nurses are not scrubbed in. They get the patient position, they clean the whatever we're working on, and then while the team is scrubbed in, you can go get supplies or whatever they need for that surgery. The scrub nurse's role is primarily you get a scrub in, you're assisting the physician and the team, holding retractors, passing instruments. So a lot of that is what I do now. Scrub technicians go to school for 2 years. They primarily work with instruments. They help the doctor pass instruments, do whatever they need. Pretty much our role is to read their minds, which is really hard to do sometimes because even though you know it's what they want, they don't realize it always at the time. So we just pretty much have to know always what the next step is in surgery and where to find what we need. So there's really a lot of options, and there's a lot of great programs for both the technology, scrub technician, and the nurse around here in this area. So I will also be up here at the end of the procedure for any questions.
Once we take care of somebody in the hospital, and they leave the hospital, and then oftentimes they're going to see physical therapy. Andrew Kleinschmidt is the physical therapist. He's the director of our department here at Wabash General, and he's going to talk about a little bit of the careers in therapy. There's physical therapy, there's occupational therapy, there's physical therapy assistants, and we also have athletic trainers. So he's going to kind of touch bases on those careers.
Hey, I'm Andrew. I'm Director of Rehab at Wabash General, and I just want to second, what Todd and Dr. Phillips said about, and Dr. Phillips mentioned this in the past few years too, to be a healthcare practitioner in a rural setting like this, and you don't have to go to big cities to get big degrees to be working in big hospitals. People are in need right here in our own communities, and I think that's what I love about serving the people here in this community. It's people helping people you love. That's my motto. Physical therapy is in the business of maximizing human motion and function. And I love the field completely because you can take a person at their lowest point in terms of the way they can function in their day-to-day life, and you can bring them back to previous level of function or maximize what they can do. It's just so rewarding to see somebody come in, like I said, at their lowest and leave a new person. Extremely rewarding work. I went to school for 2 years here at Wabash. I transferred to the University of Evansville. Presently, they just transitioned all of the master's programs in physical therapy to doctorate degrees. And so you will do a 4-year bachelor's of science in biology major or in kinesiology, athletic training, and then you'll do a 3-year graduate program in physical therapy. We rely heavily on a full team, just like orthopedic surgeons do. We have a team of physical therapist assistants, which go to school for 2 years. After a single year of prereqs, we have occupational therapists who, the difference between PT and OT, I would say that the biggest difference is the OTs will work more with the fine motor skills. So upper extremities, hand function, wrist, elbow. They deal a lot with industrial health, as well as activities of daily living, whereas physical therapists will work on more of the large body movements. There's a lot that goes into it. It's definitely a science. You take the science of tissue healing and human mobility and physics, you put it all together, and you have to take the patient's psyche into account, the way they respond to pain. There's certain words that you stay away from. There's certain words that you definitely want to hit on. So it's not only a science, but it's an art. It's an extremely fun field. So yeah, I mean, I'll be up here after the presentation as well. If anybody's interested in that field, just come grab me. Thanks.
One last member of our healthcare team. How many here have athletic trainers at your high school? Right? Great. So I'm going to have Cassie come up and say a few words. She's one of our athletic trainers, Cassie Coolhouse, and she's going to talk to you about what it takes to get into athletic training.
Hey everybody, I'm Cassie. I'm one of 6, I have my notes here, so 6 ATs that we hire at the Wabash. Some of them are over here today. We have Sarah over there. She's in charge of Fairfield, but she also takes care of Frontier Junior College, or whatever it's called. And then we got AJ who takes care of Carmel and helps with WVC. And so Sam also helps with does WVC, and he does Mount Carmel. We got Kristen here too. She's the AT over at Red Hill, and then I'm the AT at Lawrenceville. We all work together though, so you might see one of us at one of your schools helping out, stuff like that. To become an AT, it's changed. It used to be you just get a bachelor's degree in athletic training and then you're eligible for the certification test. But now you can get a bachelor's degree in some type of science, kinesiology, sports medicine, but then you have to go get an athletic training, master's degree in athletic training. Colleges are starting to transition to that now. A little bit about what we do in the high school setting. We're kind of the link that kind of gets you to the doctor. One thing that we like to do is we kind of do the start from finish. If you get injured, we're the ones that send you in. We make sure that you see the doctor, and if you have to have surgery, that we make sure that you get in the right route. And then after surgery, you have PT, and we also do your home exercise program. A lot of students work with us to do the home exercise program to help them get healed quicker and stuff. So that's what an AT does. There's 5 categories what an AT does. They do ride prevention, so like getting your ankles taped or doing exercises to prevent from you getting injured. Emergency care, so we're the first ones that run out there and make sure that they take care of you if you get injured during a game or practice. Clinical diagnosis, so if you get injured, we see if you need to go to the doctor, or we okay, we could do this and see if that helps before we go to the doctor. Therapeutic stuff, so if we do ice or stim or ultrasound, that's something else we also do. And also we help with, like I just said, rehab. We don't go as intense as PTs do, but we also can do a lot of stuff that they require you to do. There's a lot since we can have so many variety of areas that we're educated in, we can work in a lot of settings. So obviously we can work in the secondary and college. You can also have athletic trainers in the professional and even up all the way to the Olympics. We also are in youth sports clinics. You'll see usually athletic trainers there. We're even in the industrial setting where Toyota even has athletic trainers there to help with therapy. Another place, even the fine arts have athletic trainers, like the Cirque du Soleil have athletic trainers on staff. And even our military, fire departments, and police academies usually have athletic trainers on staff. So athletic training is has a broad variety of areas you could go into. And like I said, I'll be here at the end, or you can contact one of your athletic trainers, and if you have any more information, if that's what you want to go into.
So the one we didn't talk about much, and I won't ask you to talk, is the orthopedic equipment rep. There's also a lot of other careers in healthcare that don't involve going into actually being a nurse or a doctor, the kind of support staff, or orthopedic equipment reps are in the OR with us. Who here has ever done a Legos? Legos, right? You get the little manual that tells you how to put it together, right? So you can break a bone in so many different ways. Every part of the bone can be broken in different ways, and they're all fixed different. That's why we go to school for a long time. But the orthopedic reps, when new techniques come out, they get really, really good at the Lego manuals. So if we get in a case and we don't know exactly what's going on, or we have a question, we ask the reps. They're the specialists in their equipment. So there's other great careers that you can do in medicine that don't involve, a career in, a long time in school and going to, all these science classes and all this kind of stuff. So, and they not only donate their time with us today, but a lot of this equipment, they probably donated around $4,000 worth of equipment for us to put in these cadavers. So, so now we'll get on with the presentation. Dr. Miller and the rest of our team is going to start getting the cadaver ready, and I'm going to show you guys a bunch of slides in the process. I think. So bones do lots of stuff, right? Dynamic function, mineral and iron storage. They help us produce our red cells with the marrow. So all kinds of stuff bones do besides just making it stand up. There's lots of different parts of the bone. There's the metaphyseal part, there's a cortical part, there's the epiphyseal parts. They have different blood supplies, all that's really important to know. They have these conversion canals, which are really kind of cool, the way the blood goes through them. There's a lot of different cells that make up bones. There's osteoblasts, which kind of build bones. There's osteoclasts that kind of resorb bones. There can be problems with all the different kinds of cells. Every cell has a different disorder that can go along with it. These are just some slides on the microscope of osteoclasts. Osteoclasts kind of absorb your bone. Osteoblasts build your bone. There's different canals. Bone structure, you guys have heard of osteoporosis, right? What is osteoporosis?
You got weak bones.
Weak bones, right? Bones are normal, but they're weak, okay? And they can be weak for lots of different reasons. You can have something wrong medically, you can just have a poor diet, you can not get any exercise. It's really important to get a lot of exercise for good bones. So we have a slide, normal bone with osteoporosis, again, normal bone with osteoporosis. So, and you're more risk, high risk for fracture. So this is why it's important to eat right and exercise when you're done. Okay, so this slide means a lot. You guys don't know this now, but if you look at the age of the bottom, bone mass on the side, you reach your max bone mass when you're in your early 20s for men and women. Okay, and so your diet now and what you do now depends what your bone mass is. And once you reach your early 20s, your bone mass goes down for the rest of your life. And then once you hit this fracture zone, you can just be simply walking and stub your foot and get a fracture, okay? Or you can slip and fall and break your hip. Things that normally wouldn't cause fractures. And this can occur, later in life, age 60, 70, 80 plus, or it can occur when you're like 30 if you don't have a good diet when you're young. You drink too many sodas, that can deplete your bone calcium. Lots of reasons, but a good diet now, exercise now, keeps your bone mass up. It's really important later in life. So, lots of words about ways you can break bones. So you can fracture, break, crack, shatter. Is there a difference between a fracture and a break? No difference. Orthopedic surgeon's big pet peeve. Is it fractured or broken? We get this question about 500 times a day, it seems like. They're all the same, it's just different degrees of a break. And there's lots of different ways you can describe it. There's different breaks. There's a proximal humerus break, there's a hand fracture. Don't punch stuff, guys. Everybody knows somebody that's punched stuff and broke your hand. You always break your hand if you punch something hard. There's open fractures. That's where the bone. Open fracture is where the bone comes through the skin. There's a hip fracture there. Again, it's about displacement. So these are both breaks. These are both distal fracture breaks. There's a break right there. Call that torus fracture. This is also a break. Same break. There and there. This one's just displaced. This is a bigger problem. This one looks bad. This one doesn't. They're still both broke. They can be angulated. Same thing. They can be rotated. Lots of different ways you can break stuff. And they can be comminuted. So this is a guy, this is a 27-year-old guy that had a rod in his leg. Like we're going to put a rod in a bone here in a few minutes. And then he was in a motorcycle accident and he bent the rod. And so that's kind of a special one. So bones have to heal. They heal in different stages. The first stage is you fall, you get hurt. And then they go through an inflammatory stage, they go through a soft callus stage, hard callus stage, that's where they start putting calcium down, and then they start to remodel. So bones are really, really neat. That's one of the cool things about bones is that they can remodel. All fractures don't have to be just put back together perfectly. They can be offset. A lot of that depends on your age of the patient and where the break is. So here's a break at day 1. Day 7, it looks pretty bad. You see all this callus. You see how it's shortened. And then 6 months later, you don't even see it. Now this is a kid. Kids remodel well. Here's an older kid, a proximal humerus fracture. Day 1. this point here should be down here. It heals in with callus, 8 months, 2 years later, you can't even tell it ever happened. So bones are pretty amazing how they can remodel and do things. Some bones, again, remodel well, some don't. There's lots of ways we fix fractures. Today we're going to show you tibial nail. It's one way we fix fractures. Every fracture in the body someplace, most of them don't require any kind of fixation. Most of them you put in a cast, put in a boot, until you stay off of it, crutches, that kind of things. But some bones, you can't do that. Some bones you have to fix. And so lots of ways you can fix them. You can put them in a cast, you can immobilize them here, you can pin them. Uh-oh, messed it up. Well, hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Andrew is also our IT guy. So you can put them in a cast. You can put pins. There you go. You can put pins and stuff. This on the left here is an external fixator. This is when you've got a lot of soft tissue trauma and it's really not safe to operate on them. You can put pins in the bones and put bars on the outside and kind of build a frame. It's kind of like it's external fixation, and so you can treat them long term in that. You can just treat them short term until the soft tissue calms down, and then go and put a rod in things or a plate. This is a plate here on the right. This is just a radius fracture, and that's a plate that goes in the bone. We're first going to show you a tibial nail, and then we'll come back and show you putting a plate on a femur, which is a lot like wood shop. So the other point I'd like to make today is about texting and driving. Okay, who here is driving? Everybody driving? Okay, who here texts and drives? Right? Yeah. Don't do that. So I think this is in orthopedics. In orthopedics, we see very bad injuries. We see life-changing injuries all the time. And some of the worst injuries we see are in young kids that text and drive. I think, or anybody that's texting and driving for that matter, people don't realize the danger that they're putting themselves at. So I just wanted to put a couple slides in here to kind of emphasis texting and driving. So if you're unimpaired and something jumps out in front of you, it's usually 0.54 seconds to brake. Okay, and then they can measure how far it takes you to brake. Okay, if you're illegally drunk, okay, you add 4 feet to that. If you're reading an email, you add 36 feet to that to stop. And if you're texting, you add 70 feet, okay, to the time it takes you to stop if something jumps out in front of you. Okay, so which is pretty scary. The other scary statistic is that if you're going 55 miles an hour and you're looking at text for 6 seconds, you travel the length of a football field. Okay. So for 4.6 seconds of that time, you travel the whole length of a football field with your eyes off the road. Okay? So you're going down the highway, it seems safe, but 100 yards that you could damage somebody, you could hit another car. And again, we've lost already several local youths in the last decade to texting and driving. And if you look in the papers, it's happening all the time in the tri-state area. So think about that before you pick up the phone and text and drive. Pull over. As orthopedic surgeons, we see this all the time, and it's something that we never used to see before, and now it's becoming normal for people to have accidents that actually change their whole life. So we'll get on to the tibial nail. So Dr. Miller's gonna be doing this procedure here, and if you guys have any questions at all, just raise your hand and I'll walk around and take your questions. So here, first off, he showed you the instruments. All those instruments have names, and that's the tech's jobs, and our job is to know all those names. This was not a broken leg earlier today, so we created a break. Goes through the skin, it's an open fracture. So we've actually cut through the tibia. In normal surgery, we would have a fluoroscopy, which is like kind of like a live X-ray that we use, and we wear these lead gowns during the surgery. And so then we can actually look and see what we're doing. I took some pictures of different procedures so we can kind of show you what we're looking at as we go through here. So the first thing they're going to do is get a starting spot. So this is what a tibial nail looks like. Okay, it's a piece of metal. They didn't used to always look like this. There's been probably 500 different design variations, little bends and things that make them easier to go down. Basically what we're going to try to do is make a little bitty incision when someone's broken their tibia, and we're going to try to slide that nail down the center of the bone perfectly. So the first thing he's going to do is use a guide pin. And he's going to take this guide pin and he knows where the starting point is, and he's going to put that starting point down perfectly. So he's making a little starting hole with an awl. So bone is, for the most part, pretty soft. I mean, the difference can be, on people's bone, it can be almost as soft as tissue paper or really light cardboard, all the way almost to as hard as concrete. That all depends on how you take care of your bones. Most cadaver bone is pretty soft. So he's going to get this guide pin down. That's the starting pin. And then he's going to do an opening reamer. Did you do the opening reamer yet? Yeah. So once he makes a little hole, then he's going to take a little guide wire and kind of run it down across the fracture. And most of the time, these bones aren't lined up perfectly like this one will be. A lot of times, the bones can be really distracted or really far apart. So sometimes it can take an hour or two to get the guide wire across the fracture. So you run the guide wire down the fracture. And we're using live fluoro to do this, so we can see exactly where we're at, trying to minimize any injury to soft tissues. Now this is a reamer, okay? This is a long drill bit that's flexible. Okay? So we're trying to put a rod down the center of the bone. And there's no hole in the center of the bone. There's kind of a canal there, and the canal's full of bone marrow, right? The bone marrow makes your blood cells. But it's not always a big enough hole to put the rod down. In the past, there's been different variations of nails. Some were reamed using a drill bit, some were unreamed, where you would just take a nail and you push it right down through the bone marrow. And the problem with that is that it pressurizes up your bone marrow, and it can cause different things as the bone marrow gets pushed into your bloodstream. So today the standard is to ream your nails, ream per nail, and so we have nails that are different sizes. We have them all the way down to 8 millimeters up to 13 millimeters, depending on the size of your bone. And so any given set, they go in 1 or 2 millimeter increments. So we start by reaming down the bone, and we try to figure out what the size of the nail is based off how hard or easy it's reaming. So you generally will pass numerous reamers down the bone, and sometimes it makes some terrible, hideous sounds. And eventually, you get it reamed up enough where you think it's safe now to put a nail in. So we normally ream over the nail, like if we're going to put in a 10 millimeter nail, we ream an additional 1 to 2 millimeters, bigger. So that when the nail goes in, if it doesn't fit perfectly, we're not going to break the bone. If you do this wrong, you can break the tibia. Now you've got, break it again. You've got now more fractures than you started with, and that's a bad day in the operating room. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're going to pass the tibial nail around just so you guys can see what it's like. They make these nails out of titanium. They're made out of stainless steel, all kinds of things. So he just put that back up there, Justin. So he just slid this down. So we know how long the guide rod is, right? The guide rod goes down to the ankle. So this is a big ruler. Okay. We basically measure off the tip of the guide rod, and that will tell us how long the nail needs to come in. And the nails come in 1 or 2 centimeter increments, depending on the system you're using. Yeah. So our nail might be a little bit long today because our cadaver has a very short tibia.
We have all the sizes.
Yeah, normally we have all the sizes, but today we don't. So then we take this device, once we know the length of the nail, we bring the size up and to put the nail down. So we have lots of names for this device. We call it the TIE Fighter, the Death Star, all kinds of different names. We have lots of Star Wars references in orthopedics.
This guide has been designed to lines up exactly with the holes, so we can put screws without having to really make very big incisions at all. So
Show them the end of the nail too there.
see, there's several holes down here, and that's what we're able to thread screws through that, and that's what keeps the nail from twisting while it's inside the bone. You can see the drill bit then goes. You can see it goes perfectly through this nail on the other side. So that's a big advance.
So we're going to put this nail down across the fracture, but it's, what's holding the nail in? So the nail's across the fracture. We want this thing solid so people can get up and walk on it very quickly. And to do that, we use this targeting device, and the black part of the targeting device is carbon fiber, so it doesn't show up on a fluoroscopy. Okay? So this seems pretty gross, right? Yuck. Okay, this is why you don't text and drive. Okay, if you text and drive, you're probably going to get one of these. I've seen patients, young patients, that we've had to put a nail in almost every extremity. Tibia on one side, a femur on the other, a humerus, all the same day. All because that text, they just had to see what it said. Or had to send that text off. So now that the nail is across, the fracture, now they can pull that guide wire out. We don't need it there anymore. And now we're going to try targeting. We're going to make a small incision in the soft tissue, and then drill a hole through the bone, through the center of the nail, and then out the other side. And then we drill it, and then we can measure it, and then we put a screw in, and it goes exactly through the nail, and it locks it in place. So you put a couple screws in, and now the nail doesn't move at all. And then that piece is firmly fixed to the nail. fluoroscope is it's a big C-arm looking thing, and it's kind of right where we want to be. It's kind of right on top of us, and it's sitting right there, and we're working around the fluoroscope the whole time. And then it can shift. It shifts from going like this to going like this. So we get an AP like this, and then we flip it under the table, and we get a ladder shooting across. And then the X-ray tech, that's another member of our team I didn't mention. So those of you that will want to go into be a radiology technician, they learn how to operate the radiology equipment during the procedure. So they're right there in surgery with us, operating the radiology equipment. So here he's drilling a hole across. Again, this thing targets right through the center, right through the bone, through the center of the nail, that little hole, and then out the other side. And it's our job as surgeons to know where the bad stuff is, right? You don't want to hit a nerve, you don't want to hit an artery, you don't want to hit anything important. And that's really easy to do. So we try to put these in the safest places possible. Some places are safer than others. Once he drills the hole, he can measure that hole. He can measure, he's got a little tiny wire that he fishes across to the other side of the bone, and then he can actually measure the length of that screw, down to the millimeter. So he'll measure, call out the number, and then the tap will say, okay, got it, right here, and he'll open up that screw. So here you can see the screw. It's going to go that's all right. So if we put these nails in properly, the hardware doesn't stick out that much. Sometimes the thin people, they stick out quite a bit, no matter what you do. But the nails can usually stay in forever. They don't have to come out. They come out if they get infected or there's some other problem down the road. You have a fracture, bend the nail. You have to have a joint replacement. Other reasons that the nail would have to come out, but in the majority of people, they stay in. And once the nail's in, we target it approximately. We take this proximal part off, and then distally, you guys saw those little holes in the nail distally, right? So distal is a little bit of a trick, because we don't have a targeting guide down there because those nails are different lengths. So what we do distally is we bring the leg out straight, we use the targeting device, we get a perfect circle on the targeting device, and we have to just kind of freehand drill through the bone and through that hole. And sometimes that part alone can take an hour, or 2 or 3. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. But see how he's drilling across there? He would normally have fluoro that would be guiding him. But he simply drills a hole across, and then he puts a screw in. He's also, he'll measure, he'll make a small incision. And usually you put a couple screws proximally and a couple screws differently in different planes, and that way the fracture doesn't rotate, the fracture doesn't move or slide. We also try to get the bone compressed. Compression stimulates bones to heal. So are there any questions? Right here.
How much on average does this procedure cost?
A lot. Okay. It all depends. Cost of healthcare is a really, really complicated thing. The nail itself, I said, costs around $2,000. Our time costs another $2,000 to $3,000. You might stay in the hospital with a procedure like this. You might stay in the hospital overnight. You might be there for a week. So it's really hard to say. But you're looking at a new car usually by the time it's done. Yeah.
How long does it usually take?
Another great question. You know, I've done these in 30 minutes. I've had these take me 4 hours. You know, it all depends on how many pieces that tibia is in. Sometimes the tibia is in 2 pieces, straightforward. Sometimes it can be in 5, 6, 7 pieces. It can be a lot harder. Yeah.
Okay, so you said sometimes the nail has to be removed when it's bent. Does it make it harder to remove the nail when it's bent?
Oh, it's impossible. That's really rare. That's that picture I showed you is really rare X-ray. But yeah, it's almost impossible. Yeah. Great question. I'll show you some slides. But yeah, shattered bones are a lot tougher to deal with. So yeah. Any other question on the tibial nail?
Why is the foot saran wrap?
Probably just a moisture issue, really. Just to keep it from dehydrating. If the cadaver is dehydrated, the anatomy's not very good. So our next cadaver that we're going to use is a lot older, and so it's more dehydrated, and so the anatomy's not as good. But it's a good one to show the femur. Yeah. Pardon me? How old is the cadaver? I'm not sure, Todd. How old is the cadaver?
She was 90.
Yeah, 90 on this one. Yeah. That's a great question. How much does blood play an issue? And that, boy, I could talk for hours on that alone. So, you know, it's crazy because we're going in and we're taking a nail and we're putting it down the center of the bone, right? And the bone really has 3 blood supplies. It has the periosteal blood supply from the outside. It has the marrow blood supply from the inside, and it has an endosteal blood supply that goes down the bone through those canals that we showed, virgin canals. But we're obliterating the inside of the bone, right? So we're requiring the blood from the outside to come in. So if you have an open fracture that has stripped the bone from the outside, the blood supply from the outside, and you're putting a rod to the inside, now it's really hard to get it to heal. And it requires some other tricks. The other thing is that we generate so much heat when we're putting when we're doing that drilling part, right? There's so much heat that occurs that if you have the tourniquet up and there's not blood flow to the tibia, you'll actually have smoke coming out of the tibia. I mean, it's just like you're burning a drill bit in wood shop. You know, you have to have blood flowing like water to cool that down, because if not, you'll burn the bone and the bone will die. So blood supply is everything. You don't have blood supply, you're not going to get it healed. Yeah?
Do you do this for children too, or is it different?
It's very different because children have open growth plates, right? So you can't just go put a nail through an open growth plate. So we have to get tricky. We use these little flexible nails, and we go around the growth plates, and we have to get those in and curve them around to the bone. Now, at a certain age, you can go through a growth plate if they don't have much growth remaining. Say, as a female, she's 10 years old or 11 years old, or you know, she's only got a little bit to grow, then you can go through a growth plate.
Okay, so the nail is hollow. Does that like allow for like pieces of bone and stuff and bone marrow to grow into the nail over time?
That's a great question. Really, the nail being hollow is to allow us to slip it over that little guide wire. Because oftentimes, again, it can take us an hour or two to get that guide wire down, and then the nail, we can just slip that nail over it. If you had a solid nail, you may not drill in the right position. You may not get it to follow where you want it to go. Okay. So it'll take a long time.
But over time, will you grow like tissue into the nail?
I've never seen that. You just lose that part of your bone marrow. Usually you get a fibrous tissue in the nail when you take it out. It doesn't turn back into normal bone marrow. But you can lose a lot of bone marrow. It's okay. It doesn't matter. So we're gonna do some femur stuff here. We've got a femur. Again, this cadaver's been dissected, so you get to see all the anatomy and things. And let me just let me flip the slides real quick. So guys, you guys have seen these videos, right? We're going to show you a couple videos of some athletes that have broken their tibias. And, right, you guys have seen these. Now, when you guys saw these guys like Kevin Ware break his tibia on national TV, you guys have seen that, right? Yeah, and if you guys watch the news, they said the guy went to surgery and he was up walking the next day, right? That's what happened to him. And you guys thought, wow, that's got to be the most amazing doctor in the world, right? So that's the norm. When you break a tibia fracture, one of the great things about tibial nailing or any intramedullary nailing is that we can fix it that day, or within a few days usually, and then the next day they can be up walking, putting full weight on. Okay, and that keeps them out of bed, that keeps them from getting blood clots and all kinds of stuff. And so, but that's the norm. And if you break your leg in an accident because you were texting and driving, then usually the next day we will have you up walking on that leg. Even if you're a 95-year-old woman that breaks her leg with very poor bones, we'll generally have you up the next day. So, and that's our goal, and that's the amazing part of orthopedics. And orthopedics has really, really changed. Just to run through some slides here that I missed before. On the tibial fracture, lots of ways you can break the tibia. Simple break, that's what we did today. But there's soft tissue elements to all this. There's 4 compartments in the lower leg. When tibia fractures, you have to worry about a compartment syndrome. Compartment syndromes are terrible things, and that's where you can get bleeding in one of these compartments. So each of these compartments here has this really thick fascia. And if the pressure gets so high in that fascia, it cuts off its own blood supply. Okay, and that's called the compartment syndrome. And then the compartment dies, the muscle dies. So tibia fractures, forearm fractures, we worry about compartment syndrome. But if you go into medicine, you're going to hear about that. You'll hear about compartment syndrome on the news. They're terrible injuries. A lot of times people end up with amputations because of it. Positioning, we position the leg in these radiolucent triangles. Here's what the nail looks like in somebody. We've got these distal interlocking screws, the proximal ones like we put in. But that nail would go down that fracture. This fracture, that nail would go right down and look like that when it's done on the right there. So just kind of what he did with the fluoro. This is the images we would see during surgery. He would find out his starting point, and he would get that marking, that tibial nail starting position perfect. And he'd line it up so he could drill a hole right down the center of the bone. And all bones aren't straight. A lot of them are curved. It makes it really difficult. We bring the guide wire down. Here's the guide wire, comes down the bone. We get it where we want it. We can look at it under fluoro, and then we can measure off that. And then he comes down with these reamers. There's big drill bits that go down, slide down over the guide wire. There's a before and after. This is what we deal with on a regular basis. And then we put the nail in, and then we lock it, and then that patient is up walking, if not that day, the next day. And they can put full weight on their leg, and they can start using their leg. Now it's going to hurt. It still hurts. And they might require some crutches for a while, but they can put full weight on it. It's not going to tear anything up. So just one more quick story. So a long time ago, back in the early 1900s, when you broke your femur or your tibia or pretty much any bone at all, you either casted it or you put it in traction because they didn't have a whole lot of options. So, and then what they did if you broke your leg, they stick you in a fracture ward. And fracture wards were very, very common before World War II. And that's what a fracture ward looked like. There's a bunch of kids, there's a bunch of adults, and they would have sometimes hundreds of beds lined up, and everybody would have their leg up in traction, and they'd have pins through their legs, and those pins would be attached to ropes, and the ropes would have weights on the end, and that's how they treated fractures. And you laid there for 6 to 8 weeks. Okay? And this is a pretty amazing story. Okay, and that's the way, I'll back up, that's the way we treated fractures in the United States. You went in a fracture ward, and your risk of having a pulmonary embolism or getting a blood clot, go to your lungs and dying was very, very common because you just can't lay there for 6 weeks. If you lay there for 6 weeks, your muscles, you get out of shape, you just don't do very well. Well, during World War II, when we had prisoners of war that would come back from the war, the doctors would notice that some of the prisoners had these rods in their legs. And our doctors were very concerned. And they actually figured out it was this doctor, Gerard Kuchner, that was putting these rods in people's legs. And the first thing that we thought as Americans was this is torture. They're torturing our soldiers. And they actually wanted this guy for war crimes at one point. And then this went on for several years, and then some doctor made the observation that, hey, these guys with rods in their legs are doing way better than our guys in the beds. And that's kind of how tibial nailing came to be. And that was only in the 1940s and 50s is when it started. Before that, if you look back in history, I mean, there's records of like the Aztecs using wooden dowels and ivory rods and all kinds of things throughout time. But modern tibial nailing didn't start until the German started putting these in, and after he was wanted for war crimes, they figured out that this is a great thing, and it's kind of changed the way we treat all fractures in orthopedics. So back to this guy. So some fractures you can't put a tibial nail in, right? You can't do it because there's no canal there. There's not enough bone to support one side of it. This is a guy that had a tibial or femoral nail, and he twisted it, and you can see all his bone in pieces. See, there's probably 20 pieces right there. So what are you going to do with that? So we have a lot of other techniques that we can use to deal with complicated problems. So one of the other things we're going to show you is how to plate a bone, or what you can do with the plate. And so a plate is just a piece of metal with a lot of holes in it. I can show that to you. We've got one we might pass around. And these are locking plates, so you not only put the screws through a hole, but it actually hooks into the plate where it becomes a fixed angle device because it screws into it. And we can put this big plate through a tiny incision, just 3 or 4 centimeters in length. We can slide it under the skin, under the muscle, put it right on the bone. We do this all under fluoroscopy and get it across the fracture and fix it. So what he's going to demonstrate next is, go back to the slide. We're going to put in a plate just like this, okay, across the bone and across the fracture. So here's a fracture. It's too close to one end of the bone to put a nail in it. So we're going to put a plate across, and it's going to have screws above and below the fracture, and that's going to fixate the bone. Go ahead. Very difficult to get out. The screws can be stuck in there, and they can strip out very easily. So a plate that may have taken you 30 minutes to put in can take you 3 hours to get out. So sometimes they come out predictably, sometimes they don't. It's going to be very difficult. Yeah. They'd have a reaction. It would look like an infection. It'd be inflamed, and it would hurt. So, but again, it's just really uncommon. Yeah, question?
Why don't
I think so do they have to wear anything afterwards? Yeah. We normally put them in some kind of walking boot for the tibia because they tend to want to let their foot hang down, and then they get what we call an equinus contraction of their calf, and then that becomes a bigger problem when their tibia when we're done. So we'll normally put them in some kind of splint that at least holds their foot up at least the first few weeks until they're wanting to move it better on their own. Another question?
What was that liquid coming out of the leg whenever you were?
It was probably bone marrow. Yeah, bone marrow looks like fatty tissue. Like if you ever cook a soup bone, that's what it looks like.
So, I know how old the person died, how old they were when they died, but how long have been their cadavers?
How long have they been dead?
What we're working on now, I think his date of death was July of the year. We ended up getting that cadaver in January, and he had passed away in July.
Last
When
year.
they do the embalming, they may maintain the cadaver for a couple of years before they're studied on. So they have to go through embalming. And then our typical process here at the college is when the college acquires a new cadaver, most families will receive the cadavers, will go back for cremation, and then the remains are shipped back to the family once we're done with the study. So we can keep the cadavers on hand usually 3 or 4 years for study. So every 4 years we'll take one back, cremation goes back to the family.
How long have you had the first one?
This one we just finished up with about a year.
One question?
What type of sutures would you use in this particular case the most?
Oh, that's a great question. And you're gonna, if you got 20 surgeons up here, they're all gonna give you a different answer. There's lots of different sutures.
When I had surgery, they said since I'm a redhead, I scar different.
Yes.
So they have to use different sutures than normal.
Yeah, some sutures cause more scarring, some get rejected more, especially internal sutures, so we're always conscious of different things and who's gonna have a problem with different sutures. There's staples, there's different plastic surgery closure techniques that we can use. So there's a lot that goes into that question. So, yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, are there any problems with metal detectors afterwards? And yes, there are. So especially at airports when you fly, so far no one's actually hit the bomb inside themselves yet. So all you have to do is pull up your pant leg and show them the scar. So lots of people call our office wanting these ID cards that would allow them to get through a medical detector, and those don't really mean anything, so we don't hand those out anymore. They just have to show them their scar. So if grandma and grandpa are worried about that, just tell them to wear loose clothing through the airport, and then they just show them their scar, and then it's, but yes, it definitely may set off a metal detector. Yes. Yes, we don't call it endoscopic. That's more general surgery, but we use for arthroscopy. We actually can go in, like if a fracture goes into a joint, we'll go in with a scope, and we'll use the scope to help guide our reduction so we get things back together perfectly, and then put screws to hold things together. So yes, we do that. That's a great question. They're all different. They're all different size. You know, screws that we put in the back are very different than screws that we put in the leg, versus ones that go in the fingers. I mean, the screw sizes that we use in the fingers are like 1.5 millimeters in diameter. You know, the ones that we use in the hip might be 7, 8 millimeters in diameter. So there's a huge difference, and the weight depends on every screw. So it really makes a big difference. Yeah. Yes. So that's a great question. These plates are meant to hold, there's a ton of design work that goes into these plates and rods. It's just not a piece of metal. If we took a piece of metal that was too thick and too heavy, and we put it on a bone, the bone would actually resorb. Okay? And if we put a plate that's too small on a bone, the plate will break. And all plates are designed to break if the fracture isn't healed. The plates are designed to last so long. So for every different break and every different bone, we have plates of different sizes. And we have, as surgeons, we have to pick the right size plate, or the fracture may not heal, you may get resorption, or the plate will break. So the plates break just like paper clips. And some of these plates are huge. They're real thick that we put on a femur. They might be 3 or 4 millimeters thick of metal. And they just a little bit of wiggling over time, if that bone doesn't heal, and you have a big, thick piece of metal that will just, one day it'll break. It may be 10 years from the time you put it in, but it eventually breaks if the bone doesn't heal. Great question. It doesn't really break the bone more. It's just like a hole in it. But you can, if you put too many holes in it, it can make the bone weaker, and then they can actually break through those holes, break through those screws. So, osteoporotic bone is really difficult to put together. And there's sometimes when we can't fix it. Sometimes we just have to say, I'm sorry, your bones are too soft. Here's a wheelchair. You should have taken care of your bones better when you were younger. And you don't walk with it. And that happens. And that's why it's so important to get your bone mass up when you're young. Yeah. It's different for everyone. Some guys, especially crusty old farmers, they don't want therapy, they'll go do their own thing. The average person's in therapy for 6 weeks. Some people might be in therapy for 6 months to a year, depending on their injury. So, very different for everyone.
Do people ever need like customized plates for like breaks and stuff?
Yes, great question. Today, especially with 3D printing technology, There are billions of dollars invested every year in coming up with new implants and better ways to fix things. And there are some centers now that can actually custom make plates that sit on your bones and custom like joint replacements and everything. They take measurements during the surgery with lasers and CAD programs, and then they, right there, boom, they can print out your implant in metal. It's pretty amazing. So, most of the time what happens is you develop a model with a CT scan, and then you go on with that model, and you send it off to the lab, and they'll actually, they can make half a pelvis for someone that, say, has half the pelvis removed for a tumor. So they can do all kinds of customization, and there's a huge field of bioengineering that studies that. Yeah, guys, if you want to look back to here what we've done, we put plates, screws above and below. Every one of those holes you can put a screw into. That would hold a different fragment or piece. And those screws all lock into the bone. We just put enough in there to hold across that, to hold it to the bone for now. Let's go back to this. So just real quick, on the question that he asked earlier on broken bones that are really common, what do you do? Well, like this guy, he's a motor cross accident, that's a CT scan. We put him in an X-fix. And if you see right here, he had an open fracture, we got that cleaned out. See how there's almost no bone in there? So we let this cool down for several weeks, get this incisions all healed, and then we come back and we build these, we put a plate on, just like the one you see right there. There's a plate, a couple of free screws, and a hopper fragment. And we actually build a bony scaffold, and eventually this bony scaffold actually turns into a full bone years and years down the road. So that's one way you can handle a segmental loss of the bone. That right there could take 1.5 years, 2 years to get it back going again. Here's a simple, this is a splint somebody put on, a femur fracture. There's a femoral nailing, they put the nail down right here, and then here's the fracture, starting to get some calluses starting to heal. This is an interesting case. This is an older lady. She's got a tumor in the proximal femur. We get a bone scan. That's what a bone scan looks like. See how it lights up right here? This is a tumor, how it's lighting up here and here. And then in this case, we cut out this lady's whole proximal tibia from here up, and we did a joint reconstruction, replacing her proximal tibia, her whole knee joint, with a megaprosthesis. And this lady, after doing this procedure, she's up walking the next day. And then we'd like to thank you guys for coming. And any last questions? Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times it depends where the plate's at, but you can usually do it. Good. Yeah. Guys? Hey guys, at this point we're gonna, if you guys would like, if you have time, you might check with your teachers, but if you have time, you can come up on stage, you can look at the cadavers, you can look at the instruments. All of the medical staff that we have here is here. If you want to ask questions about careers, we'll all be up here waiting for questions.
Hang on just 1 second here. We got some drawings we're going to do your names here, so kind of mixing around. Yeah, you're gonna come up on stage here to receive your drawings. The first one looks like there we go.
We're going to give out some prizes.
I got Aiden Rawls from Fairfield Community. Got a bag or a cup here from Wabash General Hospital. Looks like there's some goodies. Thank you for coming. Betty Hill, she's one of our Wabash. Betty, come on back. Betty, we got a cup for you. Got a drawing here on the back of this one. This is Jacob Hurt from Boonville. Jacob, we got a gift for you. Here, Jacob? All right, here he comes. Couple more mugs here from Wabash General Hospital. Mackenzie Cooper from Princeton Community High School. One more cup from Wabash General Hospital. Allie Armstrong from Mount Carmel High School. Okay, we've got, I'm not sure what all we have in here. We've got some miscellaneous gifts donated by Wabash Valley College. Cassandra Evans from Princeton Community High School. Get around here a little bit more. Very bottom. Audrey Barclay, SICTC. Is that right? Yes, trying to find my name. Madison Barr, Wright High School. Is it, sorry. Lilia? Good? Is that right, Lilia? All right, from Mount Carmel High School. I'm digging around in here. Another Mount Carmel High School, Mr. Beavers, Tyler Beavers. Is he still here? Where's Tyler at? He's at the top. All right. Madison, looks like money to me. Lauren, COE. Madison. Is that it? All right, so if you have time to stick around, you're welcome to come up and view the cadavers and the procedures. I want to thank you on behalf of Wabash Valley College for attending.